Hello, and I'm joined by Leanne, and delighted to have Leanne here on this extra special video podcast interview, whatever you want to call it, because we simply don't know what it is yet. But there is a compelling story that I'm desperate to share with you and hear from Leanne. So I'm going to hand straight off to Leanne. My name's Ammar Mirza. I'm a serial entrepreneur. I love our region, but above all else, I love the people in it. So I'm absolutely thrilled to have Leanne here. Leanne, say who you are, what you do, and maybe a little bit about why you do it.
So I'm Leanne and I'm from a little village called Wrighton, but I'm originally from Rowlandskill, which is in the northeast of England. I've just completed a master's in human resource management, and I'm currently, apart from professionally looking to go down different routes, I'm looking to spread awareness. I've survived some very serious mental health, some bad times. And I've also recently found out that I'm autistic. I lived for a lot of years with the diagnosis of bipolar. And so I want to really help spread awareness of autism because there's a lot of people, including medical professionals, who just don't know enough about it. And I want to share some tips on what got me through a hard time and also how I connected with the marks. That's a massive part of my story.
And it's thank you ever so much. And I'm smiling, although the topic that we're discussing is, I wouldn't use the term sad, but it's quite serious, is what it is. And the reason why I'm smiling is, Leanne, because I'm talking to you, having connected with you a couple of years back, I think it was now.
Mhm.
So tell us about that. Tell us yeah, a little bit, and then we're going to delve into that diagnosis and that misdiagnosis. That is truly shocking, right?
It is. Things are getting better, but very, very slowly. But
Brilliant. So tell us a little bit about that interaction, a bit of backstory to you and what you were going through as well, please, Liam.
so it got to, I think it was about 2019 when I was about to start a business management. Well, actually, before that, I had studied midwifery. I had put a lot of years of my
Oh,
life into doing
fantastic.
midwifery.
Uh,
Yeah, I had
why?
dedicated.
Why did you want to do midwifery?
Well, I had been a teen parent and
Right.
I'd seen how much help is needed for people who are stigmatized and people who are more or less on their own and have extra challenges to overcome. And I really felt a passion for this. So when I got a little bit older, my son was off to school, I thought I'll get myself back to education and I'll do midwifery. I put a lot of years into getting onto that degree, actually. It was going to be my
Right.
life, you know.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
really
yeah.
thought everything of it. I didn't know at that time I was neurodivergent, so I didn't have the adjustments which other people could have in place if they ask for them. So don't ever, allow that to discourage you. But I struggled a bit and I stepped off the midwifery degree, and that's when I became a little bit unwell with my nerves. Now, I didn't know I was just autistic and I had a bit of trauma from my childhood. So I ended up being misdiagnosed with bipolar. There was a little bit of a lack of understanding and knowledge in the NHS at that time. But being misdiagnosed kind of had repercussions. I got put on very powerful antipsychotic medication, which I didn't really want or need, and it made me unwell. And I found I was becoming this trap because when you're diagnosed with bipolar, you lose your driving license, for example, and you have to show that you're stable to get it back. Well, I wasn't actually unwell when I got diagnosed. I lost my license. So being neurodivergent means I struggle on public transport. I lost my ability to get to work. I couldn't pay my mortgage. I couldn't support my family. My full life kind of went down the drain with this diagnosis. But to fight for my license back, which to me felt like the biggest thing in my life, I had to
Mhm.
prove that I wasn't depressed because although depressed people can drive, if you've got bipolar, you're classed as unstable. So I've started going down this spiral to kind of make a long story short. And the more I wanted to get out of it, the worse it became. The bipolar tablets, put a lot of weight on me very fast. Now, for sometimes it's worth taking them if they're going to make you better. They quite made me unwell, but I was in a situation where if I stopped taking them, the medical professionals would tell the DVLE I was not engaging. So I really felt really stuck in this situation. I gained 7 stone from them. To put that in perspective, I was only about 8 stone at the start. So my body weight almost doubled. I went from a size 8 up to a size 20. And I know your appearance isn't everything, but imagine, if that's not who you are. The weight gain also affected my breathing because I've got a lung condition, made my arthritis worse. And I also was, just to make it a little bit worse, I have ME. So I was suffering very bad fatigue at the time. Now, this fatigue was so bad, my arms would get heavy, my legs would get heavy. Couldn't get out of bed sometimes for days on end. But unfortunately, because medical professionals didn't understand I had other illnesses, they seen this as a lack of motivation. So I started getting blamed for being unwell and all, which really, really did affect us quite bad. I think I've got a little bit of trauma, and I don't think it's intentional. I think it's just that education's needed. So fast forward to 2019, which is just before, not long before I ever first spoke to you, Ammar. I realised I was never going to get back into midwifery because I had this bipolar and I couldn't get classed as stable. But I really, really wanted to change this for other people. I didn't want anyone in the situation I was in. And I realised through trying to get different jobs and not holding them down due to this illness and multiple illnesses, I realised how important the HR function is in a workplace. If you've got
So
good
this is human resources,
yeah,
Leanne.
human resources, yes.
People who are supporting people.
Absolutely. So they will help with reasonable adjustments, make sure you're not discriminated against, and get the best out of you, make sure you are performing to the best of your ability. So I realised how important it is to have a good HR function in any business if you want to retain your staff. And I decided this is going to be my forte. I'm going to change the world and get into human
Amazing.
resources.
Amazing. Yeah, good.
Yeah.
Well, it has that link to midwifery. When you told me, that's midwifery, I think it's one of the most beautiful things you can do, right? And having that passion there and having that why,
Yeah.
being a young parent.
Yeah.
I don't think anyone's ever equipped to be a parent. Doesn't matter
I
what age
agree.
they are.
Yeah.
I was really young when I had my daughter and ended up being a single parent, and it was like so unusual for a male and an ethnic person. But I mean, midwifery is amazing. But actually, if you were going to translate that into business, it would be HR, wouldn't it? It would be looking after people.
Absolutely. There's a lot of transferable skills. I mean, I feel honoured and privileged that I ever got to deliver babies. It was a wonderful thing. But what I can take over into business is empathy, compassion, understanding, dealing with people from all walks of life because everybody has children almost. There's quite a lot that I didn't have before doing midwifery that I can take over with me. So
Brilliant.
yeah, I get to put it
So
to you.
anyway, sorry, right there you are thinking about HR, and then what did you do?
So I signed up to do a foundation degree first because I had to go back to basics with business. And as I started the foundation degree was when COVID hit. Now, I was already becoming depressed because of this diagnosis, which I thought was correct at the time. And I was getting more unwell from the medication. When I started the degree and COVID hit, we had a death in the family with COVID. So I became terrified. I was absolutely terrified. And I was high risk with my breathing.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So I started developing this fear of coming out of my bedroom. And I didn't want to lose my foundation degree and lose my chance of making something because I was feeling like a failure at this time. But luckily for me, we went into lockdown and we started working from home with our degree. I was
Yeah.
also working for HMRC and I was doing that from home at the same time too.
Brilliant.
I was really struggling, but putting on a good act, if you would say. It kind of saved
Yeah,
us through. But
yeah.
as I was working from home, and I started getting more unwell, I started finding that as I was reaching out for help, I was starting to have thoughts that my life was getting too hard. and I was reaching out for help to professionals, but because there's this lack of autism awareness, and I didn't know I had autism, I would be seen as, when something didn't work because it hadn't been adapted, I would be seen as not engaging. You know, if they want you to be more social or things that would normally work, it's nobody's fault. It's a misunderstanding. So I was seen as not engaging. So when I was reaching out for help, I was being turned away from really the only place you've got to get help from. And unfortunately, a number of times I was turned away from the crisis team. So I really, really felt alone. And I'm somebody who loves the NHS, you know. I really think these services are needed, but it just failed on this occasion, unfortunately, which is why I want to campaign a bit. But nevertheless, I started getting more and more unwell, and basically I couldn't afford to pay my bills. I ended up not keeping my job because the stress was getting far too much. I really wanted to finish my degree. And I started getting into a really black hole where I thought, I'm never going to get better. I started to get these like pains, physical pains in my stomach, which I now know are connected to anxiety and how autistics can have what's called a GABA deficiency. But I didn't know this. So I was getting this pain and I would be doubled over, curled up in a ball in pain. And I thought, this is never going to end. Nobody's helping. And it got a little bit later and, you know, I lost my dog. And it doesn't sound like a big thing. It killed us losing my dog. Really hurt us losing my dog. And I thought, I'm becoming a burden on my family. I'm not getting better. There's nowhere to get help. And that's when I started feeling my life. I felt like I started really considering ending my life to stop the burden and to stop the pain. And the more time went on, the more actually started feeling like a realistic solution, which looking back now terrifies me because, you know, it's not a, if you're well, it's not a normal thing to think.
Yes.
So when I was in that bad way, and I started getting worse, there was a few other things happened. I had some family stresses, which obviously for other people's confidentiality I'll not get into, but in my wider family, there was some problems which really put a lot of strain on us, a lot of stress on us. And I just felt like I cannot do this anymore. And that's when I basically made me plan to end everything. And although it may sound strange, I felt at peace once I'd made that decision. I felt at peace things were going to end. My family wouldn't have the worry of, because they wanted to help me and they didn't know how, and I could see it was emotionally draining and painful for them. So I come to this decision, and it was like actually got to the day, and I don't know why I'd done this. I put on, they were doing this industry insight week from university, and you know, they worked so hard to still give us an education, and they had the guest speakers, which, you know, you were one of them. And I put it on, I had it playing in my room, and I wasn't even really going to listen, you know. And I did, and I tuned in and I heard your story. And I don't know how to explain this, but it changed something. This is how I ended up contacting you, isn't it? And it was when I heard your story, I realised even if someone's got a completely different story to you, even if you this is why sharing is so important and awareness is so important, because you might not know somebody's listening, you might not even know they exist, but by sharing your story you can literally save a life, make a life better, or give somebody the motivation that they need. And it was your story I was listening to, and I wrote myself some bullet points because I really wanted you to know what it done for me. Because I realised here's this successful guy who's done really well in life. You're helping others just out of the goodness of your heart. You've got a different background to me. You've had harder struggles than me, yet you've overcome adversity. And that gave me hope. That made me feel really good. And it taught me that even if you've had a difficult childhood, it doesn't have to be in your mind or not be a path out for the rest of your life. And you had changed your life completely and went on to help others. And for some reason, this resonated with me so much. I took so many different lessons from that talk you did that day. And it didn't make us better. By no means. I would love to say I was better. But what you gave me was, you gave me hope in my heart, in the belief that challenges are there to be overcome and they can be overcome. And from that moment, I still had struggles, and by all means things did get a bit worse for me, but I had that hope and that want to get better and that desire to get over it. And that meant so much for me. And I thought, I can turn this around, and I just need to, keep hold of the reins. And I really felt like I got a bit of power from that. And I wanted to try. So I didn't know how I was going to do it, but then I believed I could. And I really wanted you to know this, because I'll just say this. I'll just say, because I don't know if I should. I'll just say that really motivated me. So what I done was, I struggled to get on, I struggled to get better, I struggled to get help, but I had this desire. I signed up to LinkedIn. I started watching your account. I didn't contact you. I started watching your account. And this is when I finished my foundation degree. I'm still scared to come out the house. I signed up for my honours degree by now. And I contacted you and I sent you a message, and I think you had posted something which kind of made us feel like this guy needs a bit motivation, and I didn't know if it was appropriate to do so or not. And I was terrified, but you didn't know how much you'd helped me. And there's a bit more to it than what I've shared there. So when I contacted you and I explained my story and how you'd help, and I think I signed it off from the girl you don't even know exists, but who you saved or something. And I deleted it. I got scared to send you it. But after I deleted it, I didn't know you still received the message on your end. I only deleted it on my end. And that's when you messaged me back. And yeah, that was so emotional for me. It really was.
Leanne, I'm welling up here, right? Because just for the benefit of, and we could sit in here and talk forever, and I'm just conscious of time. So we're going to come back to this without a doubt. But a couple of things from my part. Getting that letter, I cried, and even sat here thinking about that. And not very many things make me cry. As in, I've said this previously and I've said this publicly. I feel as if I've been kicked in the ghoulies that many times that I should have a squeaky voice, right? And you're right, because you put on this front and you do. I'm a human just like anybody else. So you coming on here and having the courage and conviction to share your story, not to talk about what I've done, because that's far from it. It's what you've done, and the way that you've done it. But that was probably for me one of having this conversation, because it's took us a few years to get to a point
Yes.
where you've had the courage, you've got the conviction to have this conversation, and that is so refreshing. It's so inspirational to me, right? So it's a couple of things. I don't, and I'll never describe myself as successful. I love learning, right? I can probably tell you more what not to do in life than what to do, right? Because of those experiences. But it makes life so much more rewarding to hear somebody share what they've gone through so openly, with such courage, and knowing that you've played a tiny little part towards it, and a micro part to that. And we were talking just briefly, you hear someone's story, you haven't connected with them, and I loved the fact that not only did you share that incredibly long, powerful, when I got it, I started reading it, right, and it's one of those things that you'll never ever forget, is how someone makes you feel. But I,
Uh-huh.
I remember getting it, and of course I can't remember word by word, but I was like so ecstatic. I was like overjoyed at the first paragraph or two, because it was an incredibly long message as well. And then I got to the part where you'd said, quite openly, that I was going to end my life, and actually, Ammar, your message felt as if you were talking, and I broke down. I broke down because I felt as if you were sharing something with me so powerful, so significant, and the fact that we hadn't met. So the fact that you had the courage, and life and kismet and karma and all of those things are such a big thing and such an important thing. So thank you ever so much for coming on here. Thank you ever so much for sharing that. But you know, we've shared some what other people might describe as sadness, but actually for me, it's learning. It's
Yeah.
actually a desire, right? Now tell me, because we've only got a few minutes left, tell me what you've done since and what you're gonna do, because I'm gonna get you back on and share that story. So apologies that we're running out of time, and I know that everyone will be at the edge of their seat. I certainly didn't say, Leanne, come on and tell this story. I didn't know what you were going to say, right? So I don't want this to be anything to do about or with me. I think this is a beautiful story, and I think it's incredibly important that we share that you can overcome adversity, that it doesn't matter how dark or dismal things seem, there's always you can turn the impossible to I'm possible, right? Is what you can.
Absolutely.
So what
Yeah.
have you done since?
Well, since then, I've went on to do my masters in human resources,
Brilliant.
and it's when I was doing my masters that I found out I'm autistic. I think your mic might have gone off, Ammar.
No, no, I'm still here.
Oh,
I'm still here.
yeah. So that's when I found out that I have autism. I got the correct diagnosis, and I was able to get help from disability services, put things in place so I could still get through my masters. After graduating, what I've started doing is campaigning. I wanted to campaign for mental health to help people sharing my story, but also to campaign for autism awareness. And a lot of people don't understand that awareness is still needed, but it's very much needed. I found out that autistics have one of the highest suicide rates out of the full population. And
Amazing.
a lot of this is down to misunderstandings within mental health. There's just been new research come out, and I was amazed reading it because it's all the stuff that I wish had been out 5 years ago. I've all
Which is absolutely key, right? So not only have you continued to develop yourself, but you're keen to give back, Leanne, and
very
you're going to share as part of our inclusion by default. So people think that when I talk about inclusion, it's about gender, it's about race, it's about those sort of protected characteristics. Actually, it's about education. It's about communities from small places, whether you're in Wrighton or Ryup or wherever you are, right? It's about um, every colour, and it's
yeah,
about social class, and it's about shared learning. That point that you've just made there is so significant. I wish I'd known what I'd known, but you're changing it. And your experience, because you went to Sunderland University, Leanne, is that right? And
yes,
you
yeah.
had some support there.
I had excellent support. I've done a case study for them, and I'm going down on Thursday to meet students and talk about the wellbeing service, the disability service, because these things can help you achieve success. And if you don't know they're there or you're scared to tap into them, then it's a wasted resource. And if people can hear how things help me, because there's a lot more to my story that I will share about that specifically.
We need to
Mhm.
because
Yeah,
I'm gonna pause it there, because this isn't a conversation that you can have in 15-20 minutes. This is a conversation that we need to have and get into some of that data in detail, because you're on a mission to inspire, to educate, to encourage other people, right?
absolutely. I always say I'm going to change the world. I'll change part of it. I'll not give
Brilliant.
up.
Yeah, and you are, and I love that passion. And I'll tell you the other thing that I love, Leanne, is you. I've said this 2 times already. The courage that you have, the passion that you have, it's really inspirational for me. And something that I don't necessarily talk about is the fact that we all suffer from sort of challenges, sort of concerns about things. Everyone has them, doesn't matter who or where you are. And it's that ability to have an open conversation and just reach out that makes a big difference, because we all come the same way. Talking about midwifery, we're all going to go the same way. It's the bits
Yeah,
in the middle, and it's the people. that make the bits in the middle. So I'm delighted that you're in my life. Thank you ever so much. And I'm so, so grateful for your authenticity, for your sharing. And agree, I just sort of said, Leanne, let's do this. I didn't know what was going to happen. I didn't know what you were going to say. But I'm so glad that you did. Hopefully, it hasn't been too painful, and we're going to get you back on and do a follow up. Is that all right, Leanne?
I'd absolutely love to. I'd be honoured,
Thank
really.
you. And actually, the privilege is all mine, genuinely. I love your story and particularly the positive elements of it. Clearly, I'm saddened about what you've come through, and I'm so sorry that you had. But being able to share that and help someone is probably the greatest thing that we can do. So thank you. Anything that you'd like to say before I hit pause and come back to this?
Do you know there's a specific message that I've got which might not seem the correct message for people to give, but sometimes when people tell you to reach out for help, you can reach out and find there's no help available. And it's just something that does unfortunately happen. That's the point when you need to not give up. And even if you have to live day to day and concentrate on getting through just one day, concentrate on getting through 1 hour, just if you keep doing that, eventually something will give and things will change. You always think they're not going to change. And I think everyone in a low time has that feeling. Just cling on, and just get through what you have to.
Thank you. Um, and I think the most significant thing is hope.
Yeah, hope.
Always
Oh,
have hope,
absolutely.
right?
That was
There's
going to be what I said.
No, no, no. That's what you said. That's exactly what you
Yeah.
said, and that's the significant part. There is always hope. There's always a brighter day. There's always a better time, and you've demonstrated that. So thank you ever so much, Leanne. Going to get you back on. I'm going to hit stop recording now, and we'll be back on this particular video, recording a series of lessons of life from Leanne, and I'm super excited to do that. Thank you, Leanne.
Thank you. Thanks so much.